You know about when you want to do something so much that it becomes all-consuming, and you have to be so careful though, because it gets to a point where you want to do more work, you know, it's almost like this addiction, like it's all you want to do and what you're trying to create and things, and it doesn't feel like you want to do the relaxation, but it's like saying, I'm just going to run more and never eat, you know? What could you do like a few hours before you'd literally pass out through exhaustion? And those kinds of things like relaxation or things you enjoy doing to unwind, you know, it's not even a choice really. It should actually be a part of your actual training, because if not, it's like almost by just focusing on work and not yourself, or not relaxation and recovery, it's like training kicks but no punches. It's incomplete. So you could still do that, but you'd actually end up being ineffective, and it's not actually effective to work that way. I find it really hard to communicate with a lot of people like you who are just like, you know, who don't really have any ambition and just know everything about a TV show but nothing about themselves. They're of a level of consciousness where they just don't even see anything, and it's really hard to communicate with people like that. So I understand it's difficult to find friends, I guess, in a sense. I think the anxiety hits you in terms of feeling like you have to sacrifice your dreams in order to hang out with people or do something that's not related to working. Because you're driven and ambitious, you're like, no, this is all I want to do, but you're actually shooting yourself in the foot, and it doesn't really work like that. It's not actually about working hard, and it's not about how much work you do. Because if you're not in a state where you're able to draw the things into your life you need, you know, you could grind your gears like 18 hours a day and get nowhere. It's about getting into the state of being of that which you desire now, and the conception of yourself that is this person, and then the right actions will just occur to you, and it'll feel like just common sense, and you'll execute them fluidly. The fact that you kind of drove yourself so much in that way, it actually comes from a state of lack, and it comes from a state of feeling that if you don't do all of that and push yourself to such a level, then you won't be able to be successful. But that's not true. For instance, with money, people's beliefs are that you need to work really hard to make money, but then if that were true, why aren't construction workers hella loaded? Think about these rappers that just smoke weed and are like multi-millionaires. It's because of their level of consciousness in relation to wealth that draws the things into their lives. It's not the work ethic. You are going to have to take action, of course, because we live in a physically dense world. We can't just imagine things and then they're going to manifest. But there's a big difference between taking action from a place of inspiration and action from a place of lack, because a place of inspiration, you'll know what that feels like. It feels like excitement, it feels expansive, it feels freeing, it just feels like you couldn't not take the action and you will be moved to do so. But a state of lack ultimately comes from fear. It might not feel like it comes from there, but it is. Feeling like you need to do that much, you know what I mean? Like I say, in terms of those rappers and people like that that draw those things into their lives while seemingly looking like they don't really do that much, there is something in them that believes very strongly that they are rich, or that they're going to be rich, and they're identified with a wealth consciousness because they are. That's just how it is. It's like my conception of myself in terms of feeling like I have my ability, you know, my body is this way or whatever. It's strongly embedded in my subconscious because it's expressed physically in reality. It's a part of my identity, and that's what the real work is. It's getting yourself into the state of consciousness where you are that person before you see it on the outside plane. You must become it first within your consciousness, and then you'll be moved to take the appropriate actions to bring it to fruition. You may not even realize this is a part of what's happening in terms of taking actions. You'll just take them. And it doesn't always have to be actions either. It can be things like you'll draw people in who were there at the perfect time or something like that, and it's stuff you just you could never think it. You could never, you know, sit down with a notepad and be like, I'm going to write down everything in my career now. I'm going to map it all out and do it that way. You just couldn't do that. The ways of the universe, whatever you want to call it, are just too complicated for man to understand, and that's where, you know, faith comes in. Work upon your mind as well, because it's evident you've been doing a lot of outward action, and remember, it's always internal first, because to be completely frank with you, what happened to you physically in terms of becoming burned out and depressed means that you weren't there mentally first or in consciousness first, because if you were, then you'd have been able to handle that workload. There are people like some of these CEOs and stuff that are able to do the amount of hours that somebody like Elon Musk works that would kill any normal man. He can handle that because he's already there in consciousness. That's his self-conception, and so that allows him to do that. So do you see how I'm relating that to what you were saying to me in terms of how you felt burned out? It was because you were doing everything from a physical reality 3D perspective, and remember, nothing happens outwardly first, it always happens internally. It's like seeing a film on a screen at a cinema, yeah? And you don't like the film, so you start tearing the screen down. It isn't going to change by you doing that. You need to go back to where it's projected from and change that, and then what's on the screen will change.
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
And this is just one of the laws of the universe, irrespective of what you think about it. That's just how it is. And so this is one of the things I've been understanding lately, and it's like, you can deny that, but you're still doing it anyway because it's the law. It's like, you can deny gravity exists and be like, no, fuck gravity, I don't believe that. But then you can still go to the top of a skyscraper and jump off, and it isn't going to care that you don't believe it exists. You're still going to fall to your death, you know? It's a law. This is like part of the awakening into our true power. What we have to do is we have to begin to understand and play by those rules if we want to experience a different reality. What I've been realising about myself lately as well is that so many things I thought were the way to go just hadn't worked, and on one level that has been really painful, but on another level I can see how it's all a part of the awakening process. And really, in order to understand the truth, you have to know illusion very well. You know, in order to understand happiness, you have to know sadness. Because we live in a dualistic world like that, we can't understand one without the other. If there was no daytime, you wouldn't understand what the night was. You'd have no conception like, oh, the day comes soon when the sun rises, and then when the sun sets, night falls again. You wouldn't know, you'd just know the one, so we need the opposite to understand. One thing I have started doing is just really stop running from negative emotions and feelings, because I was doing that just so much and didn't realise that's what I was doing, which was the problem. I was just using different things to escape from stuff that I didn't want to feel, and the way I would experience it is I would just get this incredible sense of negativity and feel really agitated, but I wouldn't know what it was. What I do now instead is just feel the feelings fully and face them, and it's the only way that it actually passes through, because all of these feelings and negativity and things like that we experience are all wishing to be expressed. That's why they come to the surface. I'm not sure about your culture, but certainly in the West, people aren't taught to experience things like that, and that's why so many people are unhappy. I feel like I'm really in this process of a shift at the moment, and I've really cut away a lot of things that just didn't serve me. I feel like I'm growing into a greater person now, and it's somebody that I always knew was there and could always sense in a weird way. It was almost like I didn't know exactly who that person was, but I had a feeling of what they'd be like, you know, almost if you're in a dark room and somebody else is in there, you'd almost be able to sense them, but it's kind of intangible and not something you can really put your finger on, but you just know somebody's there. It was like that. I think a part of it was that I had this awareness of such potential inside of me that it was actually scary for a long time in a way. I feel so different to people. I feel like an alien with people. I just don't relate to people anymore. People are just too conditioned and have no awareness of self or awareness of anything greater, and are just taken by the system and the way things are. And it makes me realise just how truly great people are that manage to transcend that, you know, and become who they want to be. And I know that that's happening for me at the moment, and I always weirdly knew it would. I really did. I don't know why, I just had this sense that in order to actually get what you want, you must change and you must become this new person. Almost like when the butterfly starts as the caterpillar and goes into the cocoon. I feel like I've been in the cocoon and I'm beginning to open it now. And I knew this was going to happen. It was just almost like a prophecy. It's weird. I just have known it forever, but I also knew that I couldn't force it. A good part of things is just a realization that in order to get a different result, you need to change things. But again, it's not the outward actions, it's thinking, as simple as that sounds. But we can get so locked into ways of doing things and get certain ideas about things that we're almost hypnotized in this like loop of effect recreating the cause. I think a part of my problem had been that I always knew I was really different, but I didn't really have guidance, and I thought that there was something wrong with me for being this way, when actually there was something very right with me that just needed cultivating, like inner alchemy to reveal the true self underneath. So much of society is just huge distractions, and I don't mean the overt forms like the news and the media. There are also subtler and more insidious forms that just pull us in and siphon our energy and just take our focus and like take us away. You know, the opinions of just the low conscious masses. I've always been aware of it, but I've just been awakening way more to it now, and I'm embracing my uniqueness and who I am. But it's all a part of the journey anyway, dude. From my perspective now, you're on your path. Even though that stuff happened in terms of you getting burned out and stuff like that, you're exactly where you need to be, you know? And you're doing the right things. You've just got to be careful and make sure you look after yourself. There's nothing wrong with your ambition, but you need to balance it, remember? You can't drive a supercar with no fuel in it. What it's about for me now is working at getting my absolute maximum, and that's what I'm doing, is just not having time for things that are going to get in the way of that. Like, I've completely quit drinking and stuff like that. That was a bit of a problem for me before. I've realised that I need energy, you know, and I don't mean physical energy, which you do need that as well, but these things are all interrelated. But I need mental energy. And what I've realised is that you cultivate that by focus. You need to have less distractions in your life, things that bleed your precious energy, you know. Things like a lot of guys are addicted to porn and are just straining their essential energy all the time by doing that. That's one thing I've been doing, is semen retention. All of these good practices that basically build your internal state and your internal energy. And I feel like I'm improving more and more every day. And I'm like, what are you going to grow into if you continue on this path? You know what I mean? I just feel like calmer, and I feel like I know more who I am now. I feel that even in my weakened state, you could call it, I feel like I was operating at about 5 or 10% of my potential. I was still able to get to this level in my martial arts and fitness that I was able to do. And this is why I've always said to you, you know, although I'm happy with things I've done so far, I know it's nothing really. I know it's just scratching the surface of what I'm capable of. I'm like, if you can do this at 5 to 10%, what would it be like to remove that handbrake completely? You know, who the fuck could you be if you did that? And that to me is really exciting.